All right, we're just 1 minute from the take-up time, so everyone please go ahead and start sending in your responses. At exactly 7:25, I'm just going to proceed with the take-up. Okay, the time is 7:25. We'll proceed with the take-up. Kevin, okay, you're still finishing up. That's fine. Nathan, can you go ahead and read your response?
The Harlem Renaissance was crucial because they gave freedom to blacks. It proved and showed America that everyone is equal and that racism is unethical. Before, whites used Africans as slaves and didn't treat them like people. They now get the freedom that they deserved and they're free again.
Okay, good attempt with your response. It's just some things are just a little bit too general. I do want to go through some specific points of improvement about how we can further improve this. Starting off with the context. The Harlem Renaissance was a culture awakening post-slavery, not a fight for freedom. You can also avoid generalizations. Focus on how it challenged stereotypes and promoted Black excellence instead of claiming equality was achieved. You can also be more precise by highlighting specific achievements like Black artists, writers, and musicians reshaping culture and inspiring future generations. So I feel like parts of the question really were not answered to the full extent. Definitely reread the question, consider these points, and add in the missing details to avoid the generalization that we do see in this response. And Nathan, do you have any questions about the provided feedback? Okay, if you do have any questions, feel free to let me know. Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
The Harlem Renaissance impacted the modern day in many ways. For example, the Harlem Renaissance gave blacks pride and confidence. Because of this, the civil rights movement began, a movement that changed how blacks were treated. Another example is that inspired the black arts movement. The black arts movement created rap, a music style that is very popular in the United States. Finally, the Harlem Renaissance created jazz, a music genre that is still popular to this day.
Okay, great job with your response. I definitely do see the connection being made. Uh, it's in general, it's better to avoid starting the sentence with because. So we'll just cross this out and we'll just write, okay, yeah, we'll just write due to this, the civil rights movement began. And then let me just cross this out as well. And then I do want to go over 2 points of improvement specifically related to your last point, as well as Black arts. When you mentioned Black arts, briefly explain the Black arts movement as a continuation of the Harlem Renaissance focus on Black identity and creativity. So you do bring it up here, but you don't go on to explain it. So it is important that you explain it. And then since we are referring to a proper noun, we would see the first letters capitalized as well. And then same thing over here. Okay, and then the last point is be specific about rap. Note that rap evolved from spoken word and poetry, which is central to both movements. Kevin, do you have any questions about the provided feedback?
No.
All right, great. Okay, Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
From my point of view, the Harlem Renaissance was a time where Black people started to be treated similarly as white people. Furthermore, in 1920, all alcohol was banned in the United States, so people started bootlegging, which is illegal production of alcohol. Prohibition of alcohol also made city life different because people started to go drink at night. However, in 1923, there was a club named the Cotton Club, which only allowed white people and used black people as workers and treated them very badly. Some people even viewed the club as a way for white people to be entertained by black Americans as zoo animals. As we reach the 1930s, the stock market crashes and the USA unbans alcohol, which meant people no longer had to seek out alcohol in nightclubs. With that, the Harlem Renaissance ended. However, this had a great impact on our society now because right now, no matter what color you are, you're going to be treated the same. In addition, people had the habit of doing nightclubs. So now people in urban cities still keep up the tradition. For example, if you go to Las Vegas, the city would be up all night. All in all, I believe the Harlem Renaissance was a time where Black Americans started to be treated more equally and where people started nightclubs due to the ban of alcohol, which all of this impacts us now where we now have nightclubs and equality.
Okay, great job with your response. It's really great the amount of detail that you went into. Certain points, I feel like it's really important to focus on specific parts of the question. So I feel like a lot of the points are important and from the article, but not relevant to the question as much. So in terms of accuracy, focus on the cultural achievements of the Harlem Renaissance, not on equality or prohibition. Because again, like we do go over prohibition, we do go over all of that, but in this question specifically, it's asking about the Harlem Renaissance and its significance, as well as its impact in the modern day. So for the relevance, you can link nightlife to Black creativity rather than alcohol bans. So talk about what came out of the creativity from the nightlife, which includes jazz, spoken word poetry, and so on. And again, we kind of see a combination of jazz, spoken word poetry slowly turning into rap music, which then you can connect to modern impact. So here you could highlight specific legacies like influence on art and activism instead of general claims about equality. So being a little bit more specific would definitely make this answer stronger. Liam, do you have any questions about the provided feedback?
No,
Okay,
thanks.
yeah, no worries. And Austin, can you go ahead and read your response?
Harlem Renaissance was an important time in 1920s when African American artists, writers, and musicians showed their talents and celebrated their culture in Harlem, New York. This movement helped change how people saw African Americans, showing their creativity and contributions to the environment. Today, the impact of Harlem Renaissance can still be seen in modern music, literature, and art. Many artists and writers are inspired by the works from that time, and it helped demonstrate the way for future generations to express themselves and fight for equality.
Okay, great job with your response. Just 2 points of improvement, starting off with expand on the modern impact. So you do go on to mention it, but since that itself is a whole other part to the question, it really is important that you provide specific examples of modern music, literature, or art influenced by the Harlem Renaissance. For example, jazz's influence on hip hop, or writers like Toni Morrison inspired by earlier authors. You can also avoid vagueness. Instead of saying it helped demonstrate the way, specify how it paved the way for movements like the civil rights movements or Black arts movements. Or the Black arts movement, I'm sorry. Okay, and Austin, do you have any questions about the provided feedback?
No.
All right. So that brings us to the next part of our lesson. We're going to be taking a look at some literary devices, specifically irony. Before we get started, can anyone tell me what irony is? Okay, in the case that you don't know, that's perfectly fine. So irony is a figure of speech and one of the most widely known literary devices, which is used to express a strong emotion or raise a point. As defined, irony is the use of words to convey a meaning that is opposite of what is actually said. For example, a driver whose license was confiscated by a traffic officer may say, "Thank you, officer. Now that you have my license, I can drive." In this situation, the driver was mad and irritated at what happened. But instead of directly expressing his anger, the driver used irony, which is thanking the officer for getting his license when he was in fact not thankful. But what we see over here is sarcasm, verbal irony. Just like verbal irony, there are three types of irony in total. So verbal irony, situational irony, and dramatic irony. Verbal irony is the use of words to present a meaning that is different from what the speakers say. Almost all the time, the person intentionally and knowingly uses verbal irony to be understood as meaning something different to what his or her words literal meaning. Verbal irony is the easiest to identify among the three types. It is also the most commonly used. So our previous example, as I mentioned, is also verbal irony. When the driver thanked the traffic officer, he wanted his words to mean that he was not amused at all. Other examples are after looking at a student's poor test score, the teacher says, "You will surely finish the year with the highest honors." A man tastes his wife's delicious home-cooked meals and exclaims, "I shall never eat this food ever again." After they kissed, the groom, with a smile on his face, muttered to the bride, "This is the day I will always want to forget." Again, we just see examples of sarcasm being used. Things that are not actually meant are being said. Situational irony. So think of verbal irony as a phrase that is said that is not meant. Situational irony happens when what is expected and intended to happen doesn't take place. Instead, the exact opposite occurs. This result can either be serious or comic. This type of irony adds more meaning to a situation, making it more interesting and thought-provoking. For example, a man whose house was in the woods put a booby trap to protect him from wild animals. One night while walking, the man didn't see the trap. He injured himself. The booby trap was intended to protect the man, but it wounded him instead. This is exactly the contrary of what was expected. Examples are Dr. Johnson smokes a pack of cigarettes a day, right? You would associate a doctor with good health, and cigarettes are the exact opposite of that. Our boss, the owner of a big construction firm, cannot fix his house's broken ceiling. Again, a lot of this has to do with profession. Someone who owns a construction firm would be expected to know construction, but he can't fix his own ceiling. So it's ironic. The defense lawyer failed to acquit his son in a case. Again, the lawyer just didn't do a good job in helping his own son, and that's ironic because his job is to be a good lawyer. Dramatic irony. This one's the one that's a little bit more different from the both that we looked at. Dramatic irony happens when the audience or readers are aware of something which the character of a movie or story does not know. Oftentimes, such characters act or move in a way which is contrary or different from what the audience or readers expect them to do. The best examples are what we see in horror movies, when we as the audience know something bad is going to happen, but the characters in the movie or story just seem to go along with it as if nothing bad is meant to happen. This type of irony creates intense feelings such as humor and suspense. Dramatic irony is used to convey emotions more intently. It gives the audiences or readers a sense of thrill and excitement. In a horror movie, for example, the character enters a dark room hearing a woman's voice. The audiences don't get scared because they know beforehand that the woman's voice was that of the character's mother. Another example is from this movie, Saving Private Ryan. Definitely one of the best war movies out there. I'm not sure if any of you have seen it, but something worth watching for sure. In Saving Private Ryan, the group of soldiers were hopeless that they would find. Okay, actually, no. There's no point of spoiling the movie, but it is definitely something that is worth watching. But it's just another example. But this horror movie example is good enough for us to understand what dramatic irony is. For the activity, I want everyone to write a short story using the following prompt. Write about a character who discovers something while raking leaves in their neighborhood. This prompt is only given in case you're not sure about what you want to write about for your short story. If you have your own idea, you can feel free to write with that. The main thing we're looking for, as we can see based off the lesson, is all three literary devices or all three types of irony being used in your story. I want one example of verbal irony, one example of situational irony, and one example of dramatic irony. I want you to identify it after you are done reading your story. You would read your story, and then at the end, you would identify these three literary devices, and we'll see if it was used correctly. Before we get started with this activity, does anyone have any questions? Okay, right now the time is 7:40. We'll work on this until 7:55. If anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, I just wanted to check in to see if anyone has any questions or if anyone wants me to go over anything they're working on. Okay, just a reminder, there's 9 more minutes until we proceed with the takeoff for this activity at 7:55. All right. Just a reminder, in 1 minute, we're proceeding with the take-up for this activity. Okay. Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
James was a kid who was the head of a leaf raking business. However, one day when he himself went to rake someone's backyard, he was struggling a lot. The owner of the house, who had a son, even said to him, "You're doing a great job raking my backyard." Then, suddenly, he saw a pair rising in a pile of leaves. Scared, he started to run away. Then, standing up was a little boy, the owner's son. Bringing inside a leaf, James went back to his job.
Okay. Can you go ahead and identify the three examples of irony?
So, situational is that, however, one day when he went to Rick's son's backyard, he's struggling a lot because he's actually owner of a leaf raking business. Um, Verbal is when the owner of a house says to him, "You're doing a great job raking my backyard," and dramatic is when the owner's son, is in the leaf pile. But I clearly in the start I said that the owner had a son.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good job with your response overall. The only thing I would improve on is both of your first two examples of irony are clear. Your last one, I would just build on it a little bit more. Dramatic irony is something that requires a little bit more work. So readers know the eyes belong to the sun before James does, which creates dramatic irony, but this can be built up to hide in more suspense or humor. So that would be the one thing I work on. And in general, uh, write more within the given time. Okay, but otherwise, good job. All three examples are correct. The only thing I would work on is the dramatic irony. Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and read your response?
An old man was bored, so he decided to rake some leaves in his garden. Because there were no leaves, it took him an hour to rake that much. Then a magical portal appeared in the sky. The man exclaimed, "This is very real indeed." Then he went into a portal. Then he was brought to a very scary place, which was his garden. This was his crazy daydream after.
Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and identify the three examples of irony?
So the verbal one is the "this is real indeed," because like it's obviously not. And then the situational one was like because there were no leaves, it took him much. And then the situation, the dramatic one was then he brought then he was brought to a very which was his garden.
Okay, all right. Good job with your response overall. The only thing, as I mentioned with Kevin as well, is dramatic irony. It is a little bit more difficult compared to verbal and situational. So dramatic irony, readers might guess early on that the portal and scary place are part of a dream. You can add on to the suspense by adding subtle clues, and that would just make it more of dramatic irony. So again, as mentioned, dramatic irony does require a little bit of clue building or a little bit of details that need to be dropped. It's just so the audience is aware of something that the character is not. So we have to show that explicitly for it to be a valid response. But otherwise, great job with your response, Nathan. And let me move on to the next activity. Next take up. Second. And another thing I wanted to mention, Nathan, is rate more within the provided time. Okay, and Liam, can you go ahead and read your response? Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
I think I accidentally pasted the same paragraph twice. Wait, can I like change it right now?
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Because it's supposed to be a different one, like this one right here. Or I think it's supposed to be this one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right. Yeah, you can go ahead and read your response.
As it starts to get cold and leaves starts to drop, the gardener Bob just does not seem to be able to get his yard clean like the others. It always seems something is messing with his big tree in the backyard and making all the twigs and leaves fall to the ground. So he decides to ask his friend Max, who is a professional at catching animals. So the next day, Max comes to Bob's house and he sets a bear trap in a pile of leaves under the tree. However, one day when Bob was walking around, he dropped his phone in the pile of leaves. He will search frantically for his phone, but sadly, when he found it, it was right in the middle of the bear trap with the jaws of the trap crushing the phone in half. Bob would then sadly say, "What great use this trap was." But he would not stop trying. So the next day, he would put up a great amount of honey on the tree trunk. Then he would have a big net ready to fall whenever the bear whenever he pulled the rope. So he waited and waited until the bear finally came. He would finally catch the bear in the net, and Max would come to help him out with tying the bear up. However, Max makes a small mistake and the bear runs away. With great frustration, Bob yells, "Thank you a lot, Max. You helped so much." I use situational irony in the first sentence because Bob is a gardener and people think he has a very clean garden, but sadly he has the most dirty one. I use dramatical irony when Max sets up a trap which people think would catch the bear. However, it breaks Bob's phone instead. I use verbal irony in the last sentence when he says thank you even though he is really mad.
Okay, great job overall. Definitely great writing this much within the provided time as well. All examples are correct. The only thing, again, as I mentioned before, dramatic irony. Again, this is something that can be given to everyone as feedback. It's just about adding a little bit more emphasis towards this. So readers may anticipate that the bear will escape before it happens, which does create dramatic irony, but you can build tension around Max's mistake to heighten the effect even further. But other than that, definitely great job with your response. And Austin, I still have not received, okay, I just received it right now. Okay, Austin, can you go ahead and read your response?
One sunny afternoon, Jake was raking leaves in his neighborhood, feeling bored and sarcastically muttering, "Wow, this is the most exciting thing ever." As he dug through a pile, he uncovered an old rusty key and imagined it opening a treasure chest. Excited, he ventured to the abandoned house everyone avoided. Unaware that the key belonged to a place rumored to be haunted, just as he stepped inside, Mrs. Thompson, his neighbor, shouted, "Jake, you shouldn't be in here." He realized that his thrilling discovery was actually a dangerous mistake, learning that not all adventures lead to treasure.
Okay, great job with your response. Even with the dramatic irony, it is clearly mentioned just the one sentence, so that is good enough. But in terms of situational irony, the key Jake imagines leads to treasure, but instead takes him to a haunted house. That is ironic, but the contrast could be emphasized more to highlight his disappointment or fear. So that one could be a little bit more obvious. But other than that, good job. And again, same thing as I mentioned, write more within the provided time. All right, let's move on to the next activity. We're just taking a look at expository writing, and we're going to be completing this paragraph where we're thinking of a historical event, anything that greatly interests you. To save you time, choose a topic you're already familiar with. You're going to be writing a paragraph that best explains the event and its significance. So this would be an event of your own choice. We're just going to go through what exactly makes a great expository essay first, and then we're going to get into the writing activity. So how to write an expository essay. Expository means intended to explain or describe something. Some of you might be new to this lesson, others we might have already went over this, so we are going to keep this fairly quick. An expository essay provides a clear, focused explanation on a particular topic, process, or set of ideas. It doesn't set out to prove a point, but rather just give a balanced view of a subject matter. Expository essays are usually short assignments intended to test your composition skills or understanding of a subject. They tend to involve less research and original arguments than argumentative essays. So when should you write an expository essays? You might have them assigned as in-class exercises, exam questions, or coursework assignments. Sometimes it won't directly state that the assignment is an expository essay, but there are certain keywords that imply expository writing is required. When you see words like explain, that is an example of expository writing. The word explain is the clue. An essay responding to this prompt should provide an explanation of the historical process, which is exactly something you would be doing in your writing activity. Define the term free speech and explore how it is used today. Sometimes you'll be asked to define a particular term or concept. This means more than just copying down the dictionary definition. You'll be expected to explore different ideas surrounding the term as the prompt emphasizes. How to approach an expository essay. An expository essay should take an objective approach. It isn't about personal opinions or experiences. Instead, your goal is to provide an informative, balanced explanation of your topic, so you would avoid first or second person perspective. The structure of your expository essay will vary according to the scope of your assignment and the demands of your topic. It's worthwhile to plan out your structure before you start using an essay outline. We're not going to really get into that right now. We're not writing a complete essay, but rather a paragraph. In general, though, an expository essay is a typical 5-paragraph structure with an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. So we're just going to go ahead and read through this example right over here. Okay, so Austin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Introducing your essay. Like all essays, an expository essay begins with an introduction. This serves to hook the reader's interest, briefly introduce your topic, and provide a thesis statement summarizing what you're going to say about it. However, over different parts of the example below to see how a typical introduction works. Expository essay example introduction. In many ways, the invention of the printing press marked the end of the Middle Ages. The medieval period in Europe is often remembered as a time of intellectual and political stagnation. Prior to the Renaissance, the average person had very limited access to books and was unlikely to be literate. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century allowed for much less restricted circulation of information in Europe, paving the way for the Reformation.
Okay, so what we see here in the green is kind of a way to hook in the audience. Then we kind of see a brief introduction to the topic in the blue underline, and the purple underline would be the thesis statement. Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Writing the body paragraphs. The body of your essay is where you cover your topic in depth. It often consists of 3 paragraphs, but maybe more for a longer essay. This is where you present the details of the process, idea, or topic you're explaining. It's important to make sure each paragraph controls its own clearly defined topic. introduced with topic sentence. Different topics, all related to the original subject matter of the essay, should be presented in a logical order, with clear transitions between paragraphs. Hover over different parts of the example paragraph below to see how a body paragraph is constructed. Expository essay example, body paragraph. The invention of printing press in 1440 changed the situation dramatically. Johannes Gutenberg, who had worked as a goldsmith, used his knowledge of metals in the design of the press. He made his type from the alloy of lead, tin, and antimony, whose durability allowed for reliable production of high-quality books. This new technology allowed text to be reproduced and disseminated on a much larger scale than was previously possible. The Gutenberg Bible appeared in the 1450s, and a large number of printing presses sprang up across the continent in the following decades. Gutenberg's invention rapidly transformed cultural production in Europe. Among other things, it would lead to Protestant Reformation.
Hey, and Liam, can you go ahead and read this slide?
The invention of the printing, oh, my bad. The concluding your essay. The conclusion of an expository essay serves to summarize the topic under discussion. It should not prevent any new information or evidence, but should instead focus on reinforcing the points made so far. Essentially, your conclusion is there to round off the essay in an engaging way. Hover over different parts of the example below to see how a conclusion works. Expository essay example, conclusion. The invention of the printing press was important not only for terms of its immediate cultural and economic effects, but also in terms of its major impacts on politics and religion across Europe. In the century following the invention of the printing press, the relatively stationary intellectual atmosphere of the Middle Ages gave way to the social upheavals of the Reformation of the Renaissance. A single technological innovation had contributed to the total reshaping of the continent.
Okay, so this brings us into the writing exercise. Again, as mentioned, think of a historical event that greatly interests you. To save us the time of research, choose a topic you are already familiar with. It should be about 10 sentences, but I know we're kind of on a time constraint. Right now, we'll work on this activity for about 13 minutes until 8:25. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions? If anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. While you're working on the activity, I will just briefly go over the writing assignment so we have the final 5 minutes to just take up everyone's responses. Okay, we just have about 3 more minutes until we proceed with the take-up for this activity. Meantime, I'm just going to go over the writing assignment. The expository essay assignment is exploring the impact of social media on teen and mental health. Write a 500 to 600 word expository essay analyzing the effects of social media on teenagers' mental health. Your essay should explore how platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat influence self-esteem, relationships, and emotional well-being. Use evidence from credible sources to support your claims while maintaining an objective tone throughout. Your introduction should be about 100 to 150 words. Here, you would provide background information on the rise of social media usage among teens, introduce key areas of impact, which is self-esteem, peer relationships, and emotional health, and you would end with a clear thesis statement that outlines your perspective on whether social media has a primarily positive or negative effect on the teen mental health. And then for your body paragraphs, it's really up to you, but this kind of breaks down specific ideas you can use. You can analyze how social media affects self-esteem, explore the role of social media in shaping peer relationships, and investigate the broader implications for emotional well-being. The conclusion is where you would restate your thesis and summarize your main findings, as well as reflect on the importance of addressing this issue. How can parents, educators, and policymakers help teens navigate social media responsibly? The main focus when assessing this is going to be 25% put towards the thesis and focus, 35% put towards the body paragraphs, which will be the analysis, 20% in terms of the overall structure and organization, and 20% in terms of clarity and style of writing. Okay, and all right, the time is 8:24. I have received some responses in the chat as well, so we'll proceed with the take-up. Okay, Austin, can you go ahead and read your response?
One historical event that most people know about is the moon landing on July 20, 1969. This was when astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission. Armstrong famously said, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," as he stepped onto the lunar surface. This event was significant because it marked a major achievement in space exploration and demonstrated the United States' technological advancements during the Cold War. The moon landing showed that humans could travel beyond Earth and inspired generations to dream about space travel. It also led to many scientific discoveries about the moon and our solar system. People around the world watched the event on television, making it a shared experience for millions. The moon landing remains a symbol of human curiosity and the desire to explore the unknown.
Okay, really good job with your response. I like the way you outline all the details and even the format and structure. Everything is great with it. In terms of just adding more specific details, I understand we didn't have the time to do research, but of course, for an expository essay, we want to delve into the specifics. So include more specifics about the Apollo 11 mission, such as duration, challenges faced, or key technologies used to deepen the analysis. Expand on the significance. You can elaborate on how the moon landing impacted the Cold War rivalry or influenced future space programs. And yeah, that would be the main thing I add on to it. But otherwise, really good job with your response. Okay, and Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
Kaboom. Have you ever thought about when or why the nuclear bomb was dropped on Japan? Well, I would cover that today in this article. As the Germans surrender after great loss in World War One, they would be greatly in debt. However, Germans would not take the loss they had in World War One. So there rise the leader, Hitler, who motivated every German soldier to believe in they were fighting for their country and they were inferior to Jews and other people. He first started to invade Poland, in which ended really quickly after not even months of battle. Germans won and conquered Poland. Due to the pact Japan signed with Germany, the Japanese army also started to invade China. With China almost fully taken over, the Japanese made a bad decision, which was to invade the USA by first destroying Pearl Harbor. as the United States already thought about joining the war, and after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the US would join the war. After another 4 years of fighting, the USA finally invented the atomic bomb. War seems to not end until everyone dies. So with that, the US would throw two of them in Japan, one in Hiroshima and one in Nagasaki. With that, World War II would end.
Okay. Great job with your response. I really like the amount of details you went into. We can work on further improving this, especially in terms of structure. So there's a lot of great ideas in here, but I feel like we kind of jump focus too many times. So try and stay as focused on the main topic as possible, especially since this is a paragraph rather than a complete essay. We do need to have a strong focus. So we do jump between topics like Hitler, Poland, Pearl Harbor. So rather focus on the nuclear bomb's impact in Japan. Why and how was the bomb dropped? That should be the main focus. To improve structure, organize the writing chronologically and logically, starting with the context of World War II, the Manhattan Project, and then the decision to drop the bomb. Okay, and Nathan, I still have not received your response. And Kevin, can you go ahead and start reading your response?
I'm not done with it yet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You can just go
Alright.
ahead and go ahead and read what you have done so far.
World War II was a very important war that changed the world by introducing atomic weapons and the rivalry between communist countries and democratic countries. The war began in 1949 when Hitler and the Nazis invaded Poland. This caused Britain and France to declare war on Germany. At first, the United States was not part of this conflict, but then the Japanese, a country that was rapidly conquering countries in Asia, bombed Pearl Harbor. Directly after, the United States declared war on Japan, which caused Germany, an ally of Japan, to declare war on the United States. Germany began invading and conquered most of Europe. Then, when the German army had pushed into Soviet territory, a pivotal battle happened. The Battle of Stalingrad marked the first time that the German army had been defeated. This caused a momentum shift to the Allies. From there, the Soviets pushed into German territory, while the United States and Britain took back France. Slowly, Allies were pushing in until 1945, the Soviets had captured Berlin. The Germans surrendered. However, Japan continued to fight, so the United States launched two extremely powerful atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. This caused Japan to surrender in September of 1945. This may have been a victory for the United States, but the atomic bomb had been used and discovered. If a nuclear war happened, the war could end in just a few minutes. It also okay.
Okay, yeah, good job with your response overall. Definitely great information that's provided, but the thing is, this feels more like a timeline of events rather than an expository paragraph. The way to fix this is to clarify your focus. I know the entire timeline of World War II is covered, but when you do something like that, it really does turn into a situation where it lacks depth. If you had an entire essay to explore this, I'm sure you can. But when it comes to a paragraph, it is better you narrow the focus. So rather you can pick one key event or theme from from the World War II, such as the atomic bomb's impact or the geopolitical consequences of the war. Okay, and I already went over the writing assignment. In terms of the homework, complete the remainder of your expository paragraph, apply the provided feedback. What else is being assigned for homework is to write an expository paragraph similar to what we just did, but rather on the Harlem Renaissance. So it would really just be a summary of the article that we read, combining both activities together for homework. Before I end off class, does anyone have any questions about the homework or writing assignment? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss the class. I hope everyone has a great week ahead of themselves. Bye.
Bye, thank you.